Well, hello and welcome back to Seaside Garage. In this video, we're going to continue on the Volvo 242. In the previous video, I got the engine running and started, and actually I was getting prepared to make a test drive with the car. And the test drive did happen, but I did not film any of it, and I had some issues that I would have to sort before making a film driving this car at least. The first issue was the automatic transmission didn't really work. It slipped in the first gears and was behaving quite weird. And it turned out that the gearbox actually was missing, I think it was 1.5 liters of transmission fluid, which is not good. I filled it up, now it works fine. I do believe that the gearbox is actually leaking, but it's not something I'm going to fix this time around at least. The other issue I had with the car was the braking, or more the lack of braking on this car. Actually, they were pretty nice, but I could hear them struggling. So I took off the wheel and checked them out, and all the pads are worn out. And that's not the worst part, because changing the brake pads is not a big deal. The big deal is that the caliper on this tire is stuck. Not on the other one, and on the rear it's the opposite one that is stuck. I could rebuild the ones that are stuck. I could rebuild all of them, but this is not my car, and I would like to make sure that it's safe to drive. So I have actually opted for the solution to actually change all of the calipers. They are not very expensive, so it's not a huge deal. It would be cheaper to rebuild them myself, but it would take a lot more time, of course. Therefore, we're going to change all the calipers. And you might think that you could just change the caliper that is sticking, but it's not a very good practice in my mind to change only one side when it comes to braking, because you end up with the possibility of the braking being out of balance and the car shifting to one side when you brake. That's not a very good thing. So in this video, I'm going to change all the brakes, the calipers, the discs, the pads, most likely also the hoses, and of course bleeding the brakes with new fluid. So let's get to work with that. And here we have all the new parts, and I hope it's gonna be a pretty easy task, but you never really know when you have to undo stuff that has been, and I think it has been attached to this car for many, many years. And this is going to end up being a pretty well-maintained car, even though it doesn't look like it, but it's going to have almost a completely new braking system. The only thing that is not new will be the brake master cylinder and some of the hoses. So it's gonna be fine. So I have now taken off all of the brake parts, the old brake parts, the disc, the hoses and the caliper and everything. This might look like a second from the second clip, but this has actually taken quite some hours and it shouldn't have done that. But because I actually ordered the wrong hoses, I had to go get some other hoses, and a lot of this stuff was stuck, and I had to make some new brake pipes as well. This has taken a long time. I hope it won't take that long on the other side, but I will take you on the journey of putting everything back together right here, and then I will go do the other stuff, because I have done a lot of videos about fixing brakes now, so I think it's maybe not that interesting to do everything, but please comment if you would like to see more details in the future about stuff like this. But let's crack on. So to begin with, we're going to fit the brake disc. This is fitted with 2 small screws. And do remember to put some grease on the nuts, because that makes it possible to get them off. Someone in the past has forgotten to do that on this one, so it was very difficult to take apart. Next bit is to fit the brake hoses, or the lines that I made. These are made of copper and with a flange. right there. Both sides, different unions though, but this one goes into the caliper, this one goes into the hose. The issue with the old one was that it was so stuck up here that the inside of the brake line turned when I undid it, which meant that this area here was turned and fatigued, so I couldn't reuse it. Let's fit those. This one is going underneath this. It's a bit complicated because of this setup with 2 brake lines for the calipers, which is because it uses pistons on both sides, but with their own supply, I guess for safety, but I'm not really sure. But it makes it a bit more complicated to service them. Not a lot, but a little bit. So now it's time to install the brake shoes. I'm gonna apply some grease to the rear of the pads. I'm not sure that's really necessary when you have the anti-rattle thingy on the back here, but I have tried many times to have squealing brakes when I don't put it on, so I just tend to do it. Then we should just be able to slide them back down right there on one side, and right there on the other side. And like that. So this is this side done. I'm gonna do the other side and the rear, and then I'm gonna take you back. So this was a pretty long day. It's now completely dark outside, and once again, I expected this to be a pretty simple task that would not take that much time, but it ended up taking almost the entire day actually, mainly because of parts not being the right ones. I ordered the wrong hoses apparently, or actually they're still listed as the right one on the homepage, but it's not the right one. Luckily I found some for the rear of a Volvo 240 from the 80s that is the same size as the old one on the front, with another kind of adapter on the end. That fitted perfect, so I have put them on, and now I'm actually finished with all the brakes and the bleeding of the brakes. But unfortunately, the brake shoes for the rear are also the wrong size. It's 1 millimeter too wide apparently, and I found a place where I can order the correct one, which is slightly smaller, but there's nothing really stating why there is a difference on the size. If it's a year model thing or something, I don't know. So if you have one of these cars, then do measure this. They look slightly different to one another. The right one is slightly more down here and the holes are more rounded, it looks like. But either way, this was not the right one. Luckily, they're very inexpensive, so it's not a big deal. But that means that the car will not be driving today because it can't brake on the rear. But this will be all for this video. I'm gonna show you what I have done. And then in the next video, I will do a driving video because now it should be ready. And then after that, we are most likely going to say goodbye to this car, unfortunately, because I really like it. But that is just how it is. But let me show you. So yeah. Nice new discs, new caliper. On the rear, we got new discs, a new caliper. And I put the front old brake pads into here to keep them from popping out the inside, the piston, because I put pressure on the system to bleed it. So that's the reason for that. And then of course the same on this side. And over here, nice new brakes. And it always looks so nice to put new stuff on a car. But yeah, this will be all for this video. And in the next, we are going to drive this beauty. Or at least, I hope so. See you in the next one.